Hey, what's happening? Sibiwa here from Every Nation Bryanston. We decided that we wanted to do a midweek expression. These are going to be very short videos every Wednesday. That for this particular time, we're going to be looking at a subject matter called autopsy. Now, the whole point of this is for us to investigate sins that we clearly see in other people, but struggle to see in us. Sins that we can see the consequences of, how deadly they are when they're playing out in somebody else's life, but somehow we make room and excuses for them in our own lives. Church history calls these sins the 7 deadly sins. So today I want us to start with the first one, which is envy. Envy is the deep desire for something that someone else has. But not only that, it is not just a desire for what they have, but it's also harboring resentment because they have it. It's us being sad at the fact that someone else has something that we don't have, or someone else has something good. We have envy in our lives when we believe that somehow God has given us the short end of the stick and He is good to others and not good to us, and we want what they have. Now, the Latin word for envy is the word invidia, and what it actually is this: an emotion which occurs when a person lacks another's superior quality, achievement, or possession, and either desires it or wishes that the other person lacked it. I remember years ago, before my wife and I went to Korea as missionaries, I went up on a scouting trip with a friend of mine. And for about a week, we stayed at a backpackers, and we saved up just enough money to book ourselves into a hotel for the last night of our stay. There was a 5-star hotel. Had never been in one of those. It was amazing. What, oddly enough, blew our minds was the toilet, was the bathroom. When we went to the bathroom, the toilet seat had a full-blown remote. You could click a button and the seat would get warm. You click another button and literally the toilet would clean you just by sitting there. You didn't have to do anything. And we were both so amazed by the function and the beauty of this toilet. Next day or two, I was finally home. Now, there was nothing wrong with my toilet at home. It wasn't malfunctioning. It just had a slight small break on the seat. And so when you would sit, literally your body would just adjust slightly because of the slight break. I remember looking at the toilet and not being grateful for what I had, but being rather upset at what I felt like I was being denied. You see, that's what envy is. It's not just looking at what somebody else has and going, I want that, but it's being resentful. It's feeling like you have been denied something that you should have. And envy is a deadly sin because envy kills the heart. In fact, it doesn't just kill the heart. Envy can lead to many other things. If you remember, in the book of Genesis, a guy by the name of Cain killed his brother Abel because he was envious. In fact, even later on in the scriptures, in the book of Matthew, what we find is something that we rarely talk about, but the Bible tells us that Jesus was killed because the people around him were envious of him. This was in Matthew chapter 27, verse 18. Today, I want to briefly give you 3 doors that might help you know when you might be dealing with envy. Door number 1 is comparison. Nothing breaks the soul more than comparing yourself to somebody else. Thomas Aquinas says this. He says, charity rejoices in our neighbor's good, but envy grieves over it. You see, when we are constantly comparing ourselves to other people, it's hard for us to celebrate them. We either are resenting them, or we grieve the fact that they're doing better than us, or we grieve the fact that they're doing well. The second door is discontentment. Paul speaks about this in Philippians chapter 4, and he actually says to the church in Philippi that he's grateful for their gift towards him, but he's learnt the secret. The secret of going into seasons of lack and seasons of plenty. And he says the secret is contentment. The contentment that can only be found in Christ. You see, he basically is breaking down this reality that we as a people can only find contentment when we are satisfied in Christ. In fact, Mark Clark says this, that all sin happens because in that particular area of our sin, we are not satisfied with God. What brings you discontentment? Well, what do you look at around you and you go, man, if only I had that, I would be a better person. If only I had more of this, I would be happier. Where are you currently living on the fence? And you looking over and you seeing somebody else's life and you're wishing you were more like them and forsaking the grace that God has given in your life because you are longing for the grace that God has given in someone else's life. Door number 3 is entitlement. Aristotle said this. He said, envy is pain at the sight of another's good fortune, stirred by those who have what we ought to have. We feel entitled to certain things. And when other people have them, we almost feel like they have them because it was taken from us. Like somehow God's blessings are so limited that when he gives somebody else a blessing, he has to take it from you. You see, this is being entitled. It's us feeling entitled to the blessings of God rather knowing that God is a generous Father, the Father of lights, who gives all good gifts. You see, you probably have a lot of good gifts, but because you feel entitled to them, you don't celebrate them as much. You're not grateful for them. Why? Because you think you have the gifts you have because of the good works you do. But you have the gifts you have because the Father of lights is generous to all. Quick question I want to ask you. Many times people who are envious are constantly asking themselves this question. Why them and not me? But what if you change that question and you asked yourself, why God and not me? You see, that question means that you understand and you appreciate not only the gospel, but the ramifications of the cross, that you deserved the cross, but God took your place. See, why God and not you? The reason for that must be that you're valuable, you have meaning, that your life is worth something. And that your life is not made up by material things, but your life is made up of the fact that Christ himself laid his life down for you. And in him doing that, you can find full satisfaction in him. Maybe these 3 doors are a sign that there is a deep longing of your heart that cannot be fulfilled by the material things. But it can only be fulfilled by the living God, the one who's risen, the one who now wants to commune with you and satisfy your heart. So how do we combat envy? Well, I want to suggest 2 things for you today. We combat envy with a heart of gratitude and a discipline of celebration. How about you take time to celebrate friends who are doing better than you in some areas? Maybe even take time to learn from them. How about you take time to be grateful for what you have, to actually allow your eyes to be open to what God has given you, rather than looking at what you feel like you've been denied, and as a result, you're not grateful for what you have. Be grateful and celebrate others. If you do this, you will combat one of the 7 deadly sins, envy.